to episode 38 of the Bithell Games Podcast. I'm Alexander Slawinski.
And I'm increasingly Mike Bithell.
Each week we talk games, what it's like to make games, and the general stuff we don't find time to talk about because we're playing and or making games. Show notes, Subsurface Circular, available now, iOS, iPad, Game Dev Business Handbook, available digitally, available soon in other formats. We'll be talking about that in the coming weeks. And we have a guest on the show this week.
Sorry,
First time this season?
Good. Yeah, I just don't like people. I don't like people, but I like this person.
So we have Nic Tringali on the show this week. Nick, say hi.
Hi.
Good job, Nick.
Nick, what do you do, Nick?
I do 3D art. I do programming. I can cook all right.
What's your best dish?
So on. I've been so my half my family is Sicilian, so I've got my tomato sauce down on lock. I would say that's your
specialty. I guess you can go from there with lots of different things, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's a very good base. Yeah, for sure.
And Nick works with us.
Incidentally, yeah.
He makes all the tomato sauce for all our games.
The extent that he works with us and is involved in the Bithell Games family will be incredibly clear later on in this episode.
Not call it a family. That makes it sound like a cult.
No, okay.
Well, I'm only the
Bithell
person.
Games cult.
That's better. I like that. It's on the nose.
You can't have a 3-person cult. That's like just like a hangout session.
That's the sort of thing that someone from a cult would say, Nick.
That's true.
Just carve that above the church wall. Yeah. It can't be a cult if there's only 3 of us.
What are you playing, Mike?
I'm not playing much. It's been a really busy week. But I got Assassin's Creed. I'm playing a little bit. I played the kind of the opening hour and a half or so of that.
This would be Assassin's Creed Origins, the latest one from Ubisoft that takes place in Egypt.
That would be the one. And it's okay. It's this classic problem with Assassin's Creed has kind of always had, where it opens terribly. Like, all right, at least I feel like it does.
I've heard that it takes a long time to get going. It's
that thing where, and I totally get it, and that's the reason I don't want to kind of lay into it for it, because it's a real challenge, right? You've got an incredibly complex set of systems. Assassin's Creed Origin as well is probably like the most original in terms of they've overhauled a lot of the kind of the core combat, kind of the way the game plays. So there's a lot of ground to cover, but yeah, it doesn't suck you in the way I want to be. And then story-wise, it's a bit piecemeal. I sort of wish they would start an Assassin's Creed story small, like that they would make a very kind of a little contained, give me like a linear Assassin's Creed for the first half hour where you teach me stuff, and then have me emerge. I think Horizon did that actually, where you then emerge into this world that's like this big, complex set of systems. That feels a lot better, but yeah. So I'm struggling to get into it, if I'm honest. But it's visually very impressive. The world's lovely. The UI's hard to read. That's an interesting one. Feels like we might be hitting the point in the console cycle where people start to assume you've got bigger TV or you're closer to your TV than I am.
I thought you were being nitpicky about this, but I've now seen that pop up a few times on people's Twitter feeds. I don't know what happened. Like
I know exactly what. As someone who has made this mistake, because when you're making a game, you don't have the TV across the living room. You have the TV on your desk, right up next to your eyes.
All of us game developers, TVs on desks.
That's it. I remember making this mistake. I worked on when we were working on early Xbox 360 stuff.
The perfect case study is Dead Rising. The tiny text on Dead Rising
was an issue. Yeah. But even so, we definitely did it. I worked on a couple of early-ish Xbox 360 games, and those were because everyone had the 720p HD TV on their desk. I was experiencing the game the way it would feel if you were playing it on like a 60-inch TV in your living room, and it does kind of mess with your understanding. And also, I don't blame them. It's a visually, very important kind of signature game for the platform. So I can get where it's coming from. I think as well, there's some performance issues. I'm running it on like the launch PS4, and it's not, the frame rate's a little bit choppy and things like that, presumably because it's, the PS4 Pro version probably is fantastic on that. So I do need to upgrade at some point. So yeah, it's if I sound down on it, I think it's because I've not played much of it. I think as I get into it, I just had the first experience of having, there's a bunch of enemies in the environment, hide in the long grass and pick them off one by one, and that feels good. Like the core stealth and the kind of core action of the game feels good. So I'm hoping that I'm going to get into it as I kind of keep going with it. I've also got Call of Duty sat on the shelf. I need to try that at some point. But yeah, how about you, Nick? What have you been playing?
I just hit credits on Mario Odyssey.
Oh, cool.
I don't have anything I guess revelatory to say about it. It's really good. It's a very good Mario game, but I don't know. I haven't been digging into it. What I have been digging into are Opus Magnum and Divinity Original Sin 2.
Nice.
I could pick one of those or talk about.
Can we talk about Opus Magnum? Because that's the one that I keep seeing. I love Zachtronics. I've seen a lot of animated GIFs. I've not played it yet. Tell us about that.
So it's probably my favorite Zachtronics game, which, if you're not familiar, it's a type of puzzle game where instead of a logic-based, Picross style one solution puzzle, you're given a set of tools. There's a chemical bonding one and a hardware programming one, and it's here is your goal, here are your tools, and here is a timeline, and then you structure the movement of the tools or the code or whatever to then satisfy the requirements of the puzzle. And then the Opus Magnum, you're an alchemist, and then you have an alchemical engine, and it's this hex grid in front of you, and you have these arms and pistons, and you get earth, air, wind, and fire, and then metals, and then you do things with them. And the very first thing, and it's great, the very first thing you do is turn lead into gold. And one of the other good things is there's a story that goes along with each little puzzle. And in the story, you're ugh, lead into gold. How pedestrian. This is ridiculous. I can't believe this is what they want. I'm so brilliant. And yeah, Opus Magnum is just really, that's the gift thing is a really nice touch, because basically for I think every of the Zachtronic games, they lend themselves to small gifts of one cycle of your machine.
It's the Rube Goldberg kind of thing. Yes, it's fascinating, right? Yeah. Yes,
yeah, and they've just put the GIF export straight into the end. At the end of the puzzle, you just hit export to GIF, and it puts a little title, the stats, because each of the puzzles are rated on the speed, the cost, which is the number of components, and then the area that it takes up on the grid. And so yeah, you just push out the gifts and you go, hey, this is what I've done, check it out.
It's brilliant. It's the only reason I've heard about the game at all is because of those gifts.
It really
because a Zachtronics style game is definitely not something that would normally cross your radar, right, Alexander? It's not your wheelhouse at all.
No, anything that involves Goldberg style machines and mouse trap contraptions. Nope, not my thing.
I think me and Zach I've met him once, and we spent a day together alone walking around. Where was it? It was a museum in New York, and it was a very surreal day. And I was like, he's an interesting guy. He's going to make cool stuff. And obviously, he'd already made Infiniminer at that point, so he was already making very cool stuff. But yeah, no, he's a neat guy, and I'm really pleased to see that one kind of going as well as it's going.
I think, I would say I have not played every one of them. I played Shenzhen IO, but it's extremely similar to my actual job.
Yeah, so it's a busman's holiday, right?
Yeah.
The same reason I got bored of Little Big Planet, because it is I do this every day.
But I definitely think Opus Magnum is the best, both in the theme and the writing, and the puzzles are... And in the gifts and the stuff around the puzzles are I guess a culmination of been doing this type of game for years now.
Yeah, he's one of those designers who has just iterated and iterated and iterated. And yeah, it's great to see. How about you, Alexander? What have you been playing?
Well, actually, no, I want to go back to Nick, because he's also playing. He's also playing Game of the Year contender Divinity.
Oh man, it is probably at the top.
Really?
I'll have to think about it. Yes. Have you played it, Alexander?
I bared like literally 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and I didn't get a chance to really dig into it, because it is one of those things that you either commit yourself to it or just don't bother. Like give in or don't even start. And I was definitely not in a place where I could give myself to that game.
Yeah, I started it with a friend, and we've gone co-op the entire time. And at the beginning, we were like, "Are we really sure we're ready to sink in?"
That's great. That's
I'm looking at the
amazing.
Steam page right now. It's got 13,500 Steam reviews. Like it's
like at 95%. I'm gonna guess
93 people have been cruel. But yeah, anyway, it's still like I don't think I've ever seen that number of Steam reviews on a.
No,
this is independently published as well, right?
Yep, Larian.
Oh, this game's made all the money. This game's been a massive hit, yeah.
No, Divinity is one of those things where Larian has been around for, I mean, at least a couple decades, but definitely in the last decade, it's that CD Projekt sort of thing. Like they quietly started getting themselves together and, you know, building themselves up and doing things more refined, and now, you know, Original Sin did really well, but this is their breakout.
This is it for them. Yeah, no, that's great.
And the whole entire thing is like, it's not just it'd be one thing if it was a single player RPG, but the fact that you can play with your friends is just, it's mind boggling. Like just that.
Well, so it's basically just an art, like I don't know what the C in CRPG stands for, but it's the like Baldur's Gate style overhead fantasy adjacent, you know, all the stats and equipment and leveling up and everything. But if you made the best one of those that could possibly exist, it would be Divinity, I would think. And like the voice acting is incredible. All of the like. There are so many incidental side characters. All of them have incredible voice acting, and you can get a skill that lets you talk to animals. Every animal is voice acted, and they all have their own, like you talk to the rats and like, oh, I'm the king of the rats and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you're just a rat. I just like, you're not, you're like, okay, sure. And, yeah, we just got off the first area, and it took us, I could probably pull it up, but it's like, it took us like 10 or 15 hours just to get out of chapter 1, and like now to start at chapter 2, which is probably like twice as large, I would guess. So yeah, it's
hefty.
Yeah, so we could probably have a whole podcast on just how good it is, but it's just extremely well executed on both on the design and like visually and
the target audience. Like, it is for the PC market, like there's almost no better refined game that could target like that audience better. It's just it's brilliantly done, like top to bottom. You know, a lot of it like happy coincidences and accidents, but when you look at the full package, it is a classic hindsight, like, oh, how did no one know that this was going to be like the biggest game?
Right. And it's huge. I mean, there's so much in it. Like, you know, we touched on voice acting, but like all the art, every spell, there are dozens of spells. All of them have their own animations, and there's all these like, and then you get to the like combinations of like, oh, well, if you know, if there's poison on the ground, then you cast fire, the poison explodes, but because you're next to this type of creature, it becomes cursed fire, and, you know, and so on. And yeah, it's extremely good. And playing a co-op is a lot of fun. Because you have a party of 4, and so we each take 2, and then, you know, you get to a town, and then we just take off and go buy our stuff, and, you know, and then meet back up and do, you know, combat and so on.
Oh, wait a second. You can split up? Like, you're not sharing the same screen? Like, you can just run off into your own thing?
Yeah, so when you do co-op, we've been doing all online.
That's bonkers.
Yeah. So we get a party of 4, and then you just assign like, oh, okay, well, my friend has these 2 characters and I have these 2. and we've played those two from the beginning, so we know we work very well in combat. Now that we're 15 hours in, we're very good at coordinating in combat, and then we have our own inventories and we do our own leveling up. It's like if you took, it's the best realization of when you're playing a tabletop RPG and you have the DM that is imaginative and responsive, but in a digital format, basically.
Wow. Well, meanwhile, I've been playing Mario.
How far are you?
I'm on my way to the 500 stars.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, I passed the 250 mark, and now it's just collecting every random. There's
just methodically.
There's moons everywhere. It's that game doesn't stop. You trip over. It's like if Skyrim had like stars, right? Where you just keep tripping over things. Oh, what's over there? Oh, it's a star. What's that thing? Oh, it's a star. Like, what's this thing? Oh, yeah, here's another star for you. So it's unending. It's
endless.
And it's so accessible, too, and you can pick it up and play it for a little while and then put it down again and then come back to it when you want to. And yeah, it's also the initial game, like the pre-credits portion of it is very, get it done, very smooth, not too challenging. And then after that, it keeps ramping up. And now that I got past the 250 star place, it is the thing you have to do after the 250 stars is I couldn't do it. So I need to practice some more, get good, and go back to that. But there's plenty to do. And compared to, it's funny because where Zelda frustrated me with its openness and one thing after the next, mostly because the weapons just are paper mache and break constantly. Mario's more about movesets, right? It's about just playing the game and finding these things instead of combat and switching and constantly being in the menus and moving things over and switching things up. So yeah, I'm enjoying Mario way more than I liked Link.
What's your go-to outfit?
I'm trying to think of one without major spoiler.
There's plenty without even getting to the end of or by the time you get to the end of the game, there's a whole lot.
Yeah, you get some pretty fantastic ones after the 250 mark.
Oh, really? So I just passed that mark, so I haven't really gone into it, I guess.
Yeah, but all the costumes are really fun, and then it's also good that they incorporate hey, you need to wear these costumes to get into these certain areas, and it keeps the economy rolling. I don't really find myself having more than 1,000 coins at any one time. It's pretty well designed to have you keep spending as you're moving along. Even though there is a suit that's 9,999 coins.
I just saw that, and my mind was like, "Oh no, I have to have it too." Right. From what it is, I will make a point to try and find. But 10,000 coins.
I have no idea how I'm going to get 10,000 coins because I just keep buying stuff. So I don't know if I'm going to hit that. But yes, Mario is fantastic. It is. If the Switch was a Zelda machine before, it is definitely a Mario machine now. I would point folks more towards Mario than I would towards Zelda. But then again, the Switch has so many good games on it now and coming to it in the near future that Switch isn't it's not a Wii situation. It's or a Wii U situation. That was the second one, right? I've completely blanked it from my memory.
The second, yeah.
I've erased it from my memory. It doesn't even exist.
That's not how the world works, Alexander. That's not.
No,
we've talked about this.
Yeah.
Things still exist if you forget about them.
No.
Every day we have to go, no.
Nope. Alien 3 never happened. Terminator 3 never happened.
It's like a toddler. There's no understanding of persistence from Alexander. Like he doesn't. Things just go out of his view. He assumes they no longer exist.
Don't worry, they're gonna never stop making Star Wars movies, so you'll at least never forget that they exist.
That's true. Star Wars, for the rest of time. So Rian Johnson's doing the new trilogy, right?
Yeah.
Cool. We're done here.
I want to see Brick in space. That's all I want.
Jonathan, go ahead and cut the last minute.
That was gold. That was gold, solid gold Star Wars chat. The nerds that love Star Wars. Why are you?
Topical Star Wars chat.
Yeah,
no one,
because there's no one in the game dev audience who's going to want to hear about boring Star Wars, right? Come on, now.
And in the future, when every day there's a Star Wars movie out, this podcast will never not be relevant.
Yeah.
Now it's time for what's going on at the studio, and since we have Nick on, let's talk iPad porting. Yeah, iPad porting. Mike, do you want to set this one up? What work goes into this, and then Nick can actually explain what he did instead of just being told what to do.
I have no idea what Alexander said, but let's keep going. So I mean, it was quite quick. What was the turnaround? It was about 2 months after the PC we hit with iPad, right?
It was
2 months.
Yeah, start to finish. From the point where yes, we're gonna do it to it being on the store. There were periods of time when they were like, oh, we're just waiting for stuff. So it wasn't.
It wasn't a mad. I don't remember it being.
It wasn't a solid 2 months of work. Yeah, but it was that was the total length of time.
Well, you started, if memory serves, you actually started the iPad port before we'd released, right? I think we got you rolling on that a few weeks before.
Yeah. So it's the week before, the week of, yeah.
Yeah.
But for the folks who are out there who are like me, it took you 2 months to find the button that is port to iPad and press it.
Nick's very slow, Alexander.
Yeah.
It takes
one of my known qualities.
And you know what? He's distracted by all the Star Wars movies. Call back now. You have to include that section of the podcast. Thank you. So he's got to kind of roll with it. There's a lot of new design. I guess that's the big one, isn't it? Is that we had to rebuild the UI. We had to and function as well, and performance wise. Do you want to talk about that, Nick, a bit? Some of the performance stuff you did.
Yeah, so...
And define UI.
User interface experience.
No, that's UX. User experience.
This is my new term, UIX.
Oh my god,
I can do it.
Just streamlined the industry. Wait a minute, if you do that, people are going to realize that the two are not as separate as a lot of people would like to pretend.
But my branded version is UNIX, and the N stands for Nick.
Oh. I thought it was inclusive. I thought it was U and IX. User and interface experience.
Yes. Yeah. Most of the performance issues are... so the game itself, it's very... Obviously, it's just in a train car. It just has the robots. So, we're not doing sweeping landscapes and so on. The major performance was in the visual effects. So there's a lot of... bloom and camera correction and vignetting and just otherwise post-processing.
It's the stuff that gives it that kind of very polished, kind of visually stuff that, we lay it down with the trowel a little bit. Yeah,
it makes it look like it was filmed through a real camera and not a digital thing. So, things like motion blur, iPad just doesn't do. No mobile stuff, just they don't do it. So, that kind of stuff, that was easy, but then it was where is the sweet spot to get it to look as close as possible. And at some points, Mike, you did some color correction in some scenes, and then what we ended up doing was turning off the color correction and then relighting those scenes, the sequences.
Yeah, we had environmental lighting. I think that's what it was. So we used a reflection probe and just so what you do, you've probably seen this on behind the scenes of movies where they'll put a chrome sphere in the environment and kind of use that to detect kind of lighting coming in, and then when you put CG elements in, you get a really realistic lighting because it picks up the lighting that was on that chrome sphere. You do that.
Oh, is that what they're doing?
Yeah, they're sampling what the lighting environment is. And then what you do is you then basically reproject all of that lighting in a sphere onto the 3D object, and it creates called global illumination. It creates that look that looks very, very real. It looks like something was right there. So what we do in our game is we do that in real time on desktop with Subsurface Circular. So at all times, it's actually rendering essentially a virtual, it's called a reflection probe, but it is essentially a virtual, it's called a cube map. It's just this, it's a reflection probe, a cube map? Yes, it is, isn't it? Yeah. So it's sampling what's going on lighting-wise, and then it's applying all of that back onto the meshes, which essentially means that everything reflects light, like in a very realistic way, and it makes the plastics look very plasticky, the metals look very metally, but is a massive resource drain on iPad. So we had to get rid of that.
And had to be turned off immediately.
But because we turned off that, we then had to change all the lighting in the game and basically kind of up values back up so that because we were essentially shining half as much light onto everything. The other thing is iPad renders color differently, like it's got a different range, hasn't it? So I remember we had to do some stuff with that as well.
Yeah, it was a lot of like back and forth.
It's not linear or something.
I don't remember exactly.
Is it quadratic? I can't remember. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like holding the iPad up to my monitor with the desktop version playing and going, okay, I'm going to nudge it like 10% and then rebuild it, check it, blah, 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 pull it all the way back up and go, okay, I think it's good enough. And then Mike could be like, yeah, that seems okay. Maybe this one back that way a little bit. And, other stuff, like we made the train car smaller. That was an easy...
That's the one that no one noticed. So this is...
No one ever noticed,
So anyone listening, just look at a screenshot of the game and you'll notice that the train car, they're sitting in a row along. We've just removed like half of the background. In the iPad version, the train car's just, much significantly smaller, which again necessitates some lighting changes because things were closer to other things and stuff like that. But that was, that I thought we'd get caught on. I thought people would spot that one.
But it did not change the quality or the content of the game. It was simply an aesthetic change to a section of the train car.
Correct. It's very cheeky and it saved us a lot. It meant that we could keep... What I was most worried about was that we were going to have to lose some detail on the robots, and we managed to keep that up, which is great, which was the important thing.
Otherwise, like all of the models are unchanged from the desktop to the mobile version, but the polygon trade-off went in the car basically.
Exactly. We chose to put the effort where we could. The reviews as well have been fantastic on the art side, is because I think people who review kind of iPad games are not used to seeing like PC gamer level graphics put onto their system. And it looks amazing on iPad Pro. And then there was all the user interface, Nic,
that was the
experience stuff. Yeah. UI and X.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so you, Mike, I think I took a pass at it, and I was like, okay, well, these buttons have to be bigger because fingers need to touch them and not like pixel mouse.
The very first version was very kind of, you had to use your little finger to kind of move around.
Yeah, you really had to nail it. And then I did a pass like making all the text bigger, all the buttons bigger, and then Mike did like a whole layout pass, and that's when I think it went to... That's what I think made it really solid, was we put... Because in the desktop version, the whole game sits inside of that super wide frame with the borders on top and the bottom, and on the iPad we're like, well, this like we want to keep like first the question is like, well, do we keep this, or do we get rid of it, or do we put UI elements in it? Like what kind of combination? Because we wanted to keep that because it also helped with rendering. And then we ended up
Order 1886 got away with it. We can do it as well. It's fine.
Well, another thing you guys pointed out that was interesting was just the screen size, that most people don't realize that an iPad is more like an old CRT television size. It's not it's not
like the ratio. You mean it's like 4:3?
Yeah.
That the ratio of an iPad is not a computer screen.
Exactly.
It's not an HDTV.
So if you try and render the same kind of widescreen letterbox that we did on PC there, you basically have black bars over like maybe half the screen, like just to get that letterbox. And then, of course, if you're putting the UI into that screen, it just, everything becomes tiny because it's trying to fit. But by moving the UI into the letterbox area, it just absolutely kind of
I think it works
freed up space. It works really well. And we were both skeptical, I think. I think we both had quite long conversations about that, because me and Nic were both kind of concerned that would look crap. basically. And somehow we managed to get that working.
But then you gave it to me on the train one day, and you're like, "Hey, so go ahead and play this. And what are the differences that you see?" And I go, "I don't see any differences." No. And you're like, "Yay!"
Perfect. That's how we know it's working. Like, that's the thing, is you didn't see a visual difference, but you. I don't think I gave you. Did I let you play on the very first port where it literally just the PC version kind of shrunk down onto an iPad screen? I can't remember if you tried that version. That was a nightmare. No, I didn't put that.
No.
As a rule, I don't put those versions of anything in front of you, Alexander, because you don't like those.
He's a delicate soul.
He's a delicate soul. He needs to play a game once it's ready to be played. He can't. Yeah, it's fair enough. We need to keep the prototype we're working on right now as far from Alexander as we can for as long as we can.
Yeah, that could not.
That could not happen.
Not even in the same room.
I love that the two of you are conspiring in such a way with this prototype where you're it's fair. No, I get it.
It's getting good. I said this to you, what was it, 2 days ago, Nick, where it was like basically like it's getting good enough now that we have to actually polish the interface because it's functionally great, but it feels like utter garbage.
But it's like, we joke around, but it's really useful to have someone that has never seen it to see it completely fresh, because we now, like Mike and I on the new thing, are like, okay, well, there's like this problem, we're going to overlook it just to kind of envision the final thing. Mm-hmm. And then once it moves along a little and Alexander sees it and goes, well, why is it like this? And we go, oh, well, all right, yeah, we'll fix that then.
It helps us prioritize. Like, even if with playtesting, even if it's something you already know about, it tells you what's important. Like all of our nonsense about, like, with the iPad, to bring it back to the iPad version of Subsurface, our fears about the UI changes kind of looking off with the original. The fact that Alexander couldn't tell there was a difference means that we didn't need to worry about that. So that deprioritizes. It's like, oh, well, this is working. People don't get it. People don't see the difference. So that's good. So yeah, and then went through all of that process. The store was really easy.
Yeah, it was getting the Apple stuff. It was a new experience for me, having to freshly ship something on mobile, because I had worked on Earthshape, and I was like, okay, I understand, like, we getting it through the mobile cert, but then like going through iOS is different, and then from the very beginning is also different. And so it wasn't like hard or awful. It was just, a new experience.
Yeah, the thing that was different with Earthshape was because we were making as a launch title for the platform as well. Everything was very in flux anyway. Like I think we did pretty well, in fairness. I think we were always in with builds nice and early, and it was much more of an informal process, whereas obviously when you're releasing something on iOS now, you are the 10 millionth person to do it.
You're subject to their whims.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, but they were good as well, and Apple, we had a good relationship throughout, just kind of helping us out with all that stuff. So yeah. All good. Any questions, Alexander?
Yeah, why not iPhone?
Well, because we hate iPhone.
We hate iPhone.
Use iPads.
I don't like people who use iPhones. I want to make that very clear on this. There's only one group I hate more. They're
morally corrupt.
They are morally corrupt. There's only one group I hate more than iPhone users, and that's anyone with an Android device. Those people, screw those people, and Linux users as well. Oh my goodness me! If I never hear from a Linux user, I don't mean any of this. I love all of you massively.
There's no room.
There's no room.
It's too small. Yeah,
it's too small.
Like, do you want to see the text or do you want to see the robots?
You get one or the other.
Robots, because I made them.
And they're part of the experience, because we could definitely. I saw actually there's a company that's doing this now, who I think they're pretty new, because I don't think I saw it before we started, where they're releasing ebooks, but they're releasing them as like messenger conversations. It's not got the interaction element that we have, but like you can read like an IM history essentially as a story. And
there are games like that where they.
Oh no, there are games that play out like a phone, but no, this is someone trying to mainstream that idea basically.
Okay.
Gotcha. No, there's definitely lots of games that predate ours that do the IM thing, but like this kind of a very general audience stuff. But it works. But yeah, we can't do that because we want to show you the robots as well. So it would be, if we were to do Subsurface as an iPhone game, it would basically be you'd hold the device sideways so you could see the train carriage. Then you tap on a robot, and then you'd have to
stylus to hit the UI elements.
Yeah, exactly. It would be a massive overhaul, and I think it would result in a worse game. Like, I don't think people really want that experience. I think it's a game that really sings on desktop and iPad.
Well, even if you imagine, like, let's say there were no visuals, there's the map, there's the focus points, there's the objectives, there's the hint screen and the pause button, then there's a whole scrolling window for the dialogue. And basically, on the phone, you could have the scrolling window, and then you'd have to have
like buttons. There'd be separate tabs. It would be like using the Twitter client on your phone or whatever. It would be a completely redesigned. Yeah. Wouldn't be good. We do a lot of work on it, and people would hate it. That's a reason not to do it.
It definitely would take longer than 2 months.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure.
1, 2, 3. I wanna thank you for reading the freedom mail again. Thank you for reading the freedom mail again.
Dear Mike and Alexander, I was wondering what is in the next game you're working on. No.
Oh, cool. So, it starts on a lonely island.
You're on a planet.
On the off chance that you didn't fall for that, here's the alternative question.
Okay, fair enough. We did. Good. I mean, me and Nick did fall for that though, sadly. So we were about to say the whole thing, but that's okay.
What is your opinion on the work Unity have done with Neil Blomkamp on the Adam short movies? Do you think game engines are getting to the point of challenging, quote, old school animation rendering for films, or can they be a category of their own? Would you ever consider doing something like a short animated film with a game engine? Kind regards, Adam. Not the one from the movies.
Not the one from the movie. He's not become
not the fictional robot. Yeah.
No, that would be amazing though. That would be slightly narcissistic of him to ask the question.
Talk about an ARG.
Yeah. So I really like this question, Mike. What's the thinking here?
So it's something that games companies have been, or engine companies have been doing for a long time, is trying to court that filmmaking side of things. I worked at one point on a version of an engine which was specifically for doing animatics, for doing kind of action sequence kind of planning. And there's a few that are used in Hollywood. What we've seen in the last few years is an attempt to use it for visualization. It's kind of come in weirdly through like mocap studios. So I know Peter Jackson had like a virtual camera rig, which was basically like an iPad running, which was being tracked in real time, and then he was using that to like film a mocap scene as it was being mocapped, and that was kind of an approach that they took. So it's been often used for previs. The problem has always been though that the engines weren't visually good enough to do real time rendering that would be competitive with like a Pixar or whatever.
I do recall this coming up with Resident Evil 5. I believe Capcom used that technology for Resident Evil 5, and then perhaps in the future ones as well. But the first time I remember seeing it wasn't in a movie, was specifically with Capcom.
Okay, so for using it in a mocap setting, because obviously the I know Imaginarium have done lots of stuff with this, like that's been a part of it. But so what we are seeing now is we're seeing that the progress with kind of the render farmed kind of movie footage is slowing, and video game graphics are continuing to get better and better. So we are hitting a point now, where I think there is going to be overlap. There is going to be an opportunity to animate a movie with a game engine. There's obviously benefits to that. You can iterate very quickly. Things kind of happen. A director can direct in a much more live action-y way, that they can kind of change something on the fly and see the result of that incredibly quickly in a way that you can't do with pre-rendering. In terms of whether I would want to do it, no, I don't make films. I'm not a director. I'd be terrible. It would be like watching a film school project from a 16-year-old. You don't want to see a movie I make. You want to see games that I make, hopefully, but you don't want to see films. I'd be awful.
Nick, what's your take on these?
I remember I was reading something a while ago on the behind the scenes of Rogue One, one of the Star Wars movies, and there's a scene, there's like the climactic space battle with the shield, and there's the hole in the shield, and they're trying to get through it, and apparently that was all they did like a halfway render of the whole battle, and then whoever Davies. we'll say Gareth because we're on first name terms. He apparently filmed. Yeah, he apparently filmed, or he chose the shots. They basically, because the traditional way you would do it is somebody storyboards it out and goes, okay, we're gonna have this shot with the X-Men going this way, and then there's the Star Destroyer and blah blah blah, and then the director comes in and goes, okay, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, and then the VFX house goes, okay, these are the shots. Then we're gonna render a previs, which is like, you know, grotesquely ugly, blocky, but just gets the motions and the camera framing down. And then that goes back and forth a bunch of times, and then they make the nice looking one. Apparently what they did is I don't know, I'm trying to remember, so I might get a couple details wrong, but they apparently did the previs first, and they did this whole battle, and then the director comes in and goes, okay, I think this shot looks good. Let's try it from here. And then this whole kind of interactive shot framing. And then they, you know, I'm sure there was a lot more back and forth on the details of the battle. And then they went to the final version. And so I don't know if people are going to use Unity to make films. I think at some point the quality will probably be comparable, but you know, like at least comparable, like ILM and Pixar are always going to be like untouchable because that's the only thing they're doing, and they're putting so many more resources into just making incredible looking computer imagery. But like, you know, I could definitely see like a children's animated show like probably start using Unity instead of, you know, something else. I do not want to make films.
Well, some do. There's one kids TV show in the UK that's done, I think, with Unreal Engine. So there is already some of this stuff being done. It's cheaper, it's faster.
Yeah.
But you know, the question I have is there a point where you're absolutely right? ILM and Pixar are always going to be ahead of what can be done in real time by definition. But is there a point where the audience stops caring about?
Well, I swear I've seen a couple animes now that look like Tales of games. Like they look like Tales of Symphonia or Fantasia or any of those types of things. And they look like game engine assets. It's definitely not anime. Like it looks like a game engine.
They might just be cheaply produced in a render farm though as well.
Is that the style they're going for? Like,
I don't know. Like I really should have looked it up before we did this episode. But yeah, I've definitely seen a couple animes now that look like game engine animes. Like they're 3D assets. They're definitely the type of stuff that you would, you know, buy off the asset store, and then tweak as needed. But you know, I'm sure they did original 3D assets. But it looks like a game cutscene. It doesn't look like an anime anymore.
It's also worth saying that this is not necessarily, it's not like if you use a game engine to make a film, you have to render it in real time. You know, we, for example, like with Subsurface, there's like promo art of the game that's like at crazy resolution because we needed to use it in print. And you can leave a real-time engine rendering big, you know, expensive frames that you could never actually run at real time. So at that point, it really does just come down to the quality of the lighting engine and the surface side of things, true. The shaders.
You could put so much into Unity that it goes down to 10 frames a second, which
wouldn't matter.
Unplayable. But if you're just capturing frames, and like once you've decided, like, okay, this is a frame we want, now turn the settings up and render it. I mean, at that point, it's almost a traditional model already. Like it's that way to do it would be very close to how a regular shop would do it.
That's true. I guess though that there's probably less middle ground. I don't think it's a coincidence, for example, that we see the video from Neil Blomkamp, which is coming out at the same time as Cinemachine iterating Unity. I think something like Cinemachine is targeting this crowd. I really do. I think they are genuinely going for, because stuff like Cinemachine is amazing real-time non-linear shot setups essentially, and I can see stuff like that being very attractive to an animation team, because as far as I know, that's not how it's done. You know, they're still manually making a camera do a move in the rendered sense, whereas here it's like you're actually using AI to drive good shot framing. You know, there's stuff there that does seem interesting.
I think the closest I would personally come to making a movie would be like directing a cutscene in a game, basically. And it's because like, I like reading about film theory and like shot composition, but like I don't have the time or I don't have all of the things necessary to go start making fills.
It also gets really tedious, like in a way that I assume most film directors would find game development tedious. Like I did,
probably.
I was an actor as a kid, so I was in a couple of films as a kid. But then which is the most boring thing in the world. And then in a previous job, I did a lot of cutscene work. So I was setting up cutscenes, and it seems really fun until you've spent a day making a camera that slowly pans up a character and has to hit like their hand reaching for their gun at the exact right frame so it's in the right place. Like it's a slower process than I think a lot of people realize.
And if I'm in Unity already, like I'm probably just gonna make a game.
Just make a game, right? Yeah, no, I agree.
I'm way better at that, and so
yeah.
And then second question, just to wrap it up. It's a quick one, though. It's a quick one. Hey, Mike and Alexander, quick question about the universe.
Wow.
What is your favorite quark? I'm leaning towards the Dan quark myself. Steven.
Well, it's got to be Quark, brother of Rom,
from
right?
Quark's Bar, yeah.
Yeah, like
that would also
the best Quark.
I was going to say whichever one gets me a cocktail.
He starts kind of snivelly and evil, but over time he realizes...
He has a heart of gold.
He has a heart of gold, but he plays a very important role in the Dominion War. Like, I don't think he should be overlooked as a...
I would, if there was a show that was Worf, the commander of a space station, and Quark, the bartender...
I'd watch the show.
And anyone else, I do not care. I would watch that show.
Yeah.
I would pay a lot of money to watch that show.
Yeah. Michael Dorn, Armin Shimmerman just hanging out. Yeah, that's my favorite Quark in the universe.
But also, a good strange Quark or charm. The
quirk.
The regular Quarks. The up down charm, strange, left and right, and so on.
If you have a burning question about games, game development, or just about the complexities of the universe, you can send those questions to us via contact@BithelGames.com.
It's easier to talk about Star Wars, wasn't it?
That's contact@BithelGames.com. Through the YouTube comments of this show, or on Twitter by pinging @MikeBithell or @Slawinski, or Nick. Nick, let's toss your Twitter in there.
@Nic Tringali, NicTringali. Is
that right? I don't.
Is that right?
Right?
I've spelled my name.
You probably have, yeah.
A lot.
That's true.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Bithell Games Podcast. We can always use your support, so please provide reviews and 5 stars on iTunes, likes and subscribes on YouTube, and positive reinforcement on whatever other platforms you're hearing this show on whenever possible. This podcast was produced by Jonathan Downen. We'll be back next week. I'm Alexander Slawinski. Thanks again. Thank you, Nick, for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And get in the last word, Mike.
May the Force be with you.